just wanna give to you the perfect gift today.
Uh, Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depending on where you are at, and maybe even good evening for some folks who knows. As you all know, it's always, at least for me, it's a great opportunity to be able to speak and to be able to share my thoughts on a variety of different things that goes on, in my life, and it's all about my process of healing regarding different things that comes up for me. And one of the things that I continue to do that I feel that is always important for me whenever I give a talk is to turn it over to the Holy Spirit and to ask the Spirit for guidance on what is it that they feel that something that I need to process and something that I need to heal, within my self regarding that aspect of it. And so today it was about being a victim, or in more essence, I am not a victim. So I was guided to be able to talk about that. As we know, in the course, in lesson 31, and also it repeats again in lesson 57, where it says, I am not the victim of the world that I see. And I remember early on, when I first started to study the course, how that particular phrase was very hard to deal with, to really, really, understand and then to grasp the fact that, that I am not a victim, and to really, really like, look at that. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute here. What do you mean I'm not a victim? And to be able to, take that in and understand what that really, means. But then as more and more I start studying the course and getting a better sense and get a better understanding, I got it to understand the whole idea about us not being a, victim. It's not denying that things happens to us, because in this world things does happen to us. That's just the, nature of it. But, in my mind, it helped me realize, how do I see that? How do I actually, take that in? Um, but of course, as folks of us being in this world, things happen, things comes up, even though I, am a spiritual person, I do live in this world that continues to bring up challenges, that continues to bring up stuff. So, I slip back into my old ways at times, and, find myself, feeling like a victim in a variety of different situations regarding that aspect of it. It's just, it happens. And so today I was guided to talk about a couple of those, incidents that, happened, recently in the past few weeks, where I allowed myself to go into that victimhood, where I, allowed myself to really take on the attack that I felt that I was having, and how that actually really, infected me, and how it really, really, impacted of how I was moving forward, within those, couple of incidents that, happened, and how I was able to allow myself to remind me that, what, Vincent, you have a spiritual practice that can help you get through this, that can help you shift and not buy into the whole ideal of me feeling like um, I was a victim. But it's a challenge, though. It really, really was a challenge for me to be able to do that, and to be able to take away my ego, and then actually bring my spirit more into line of where I was regarding these, incidents that, took place, these, in the past, few weeks, and how it really, hit me in a way that I never, thought possible. But then the course tells us, and this was in the reading that our wonderful, wonderful Reverend Kim read today. So thank you, Reverend Kim. Really appreciate it. Suffering is an emphasis upon all that the world has done to injure you. Here is the world's demented version of salvation, clearly shown, like to a dream of punishment, in which the dreamer is unconscious of what brought on the attack against himself. He sees himself attacked unjustly, and by something not himself, sees himself unjustly attacked by something not himself. He is the victim of this. something else, a thing outside himself for which he has no reason to be held responsible. And for me, I really, really, appreciated this, quote, this part of the course because it really got me to think about the situation that I was in a few weeks ago, and but it also reminds me also of the lesson of I am not the victim of this world that I see, because I think the purpose of the whole concept of I am not the victim of this world I see is giving us the chance to rewind in my mind and to be able to see and where we could go back and shift and change that, to change what we thought was actually really happening, and to be able to see it in a more bigger picture and understanding where things were happening. And that's one of the things I always appreciate, one about this one, but also just the whole concept of I am not the victim of this world that I see, because it really is letting us to see things differently, which I think is so important in this world that we actually are in. And so this particular quote, what it reminded me of an incident that happened, as most of you are aware of. I finished up my, degree and, got my doctorate in clinical psychology. But part of that is you still have to do some hours. So it's like our postdoc hours. So kind of like a doctor when they have to do their residency. Well, same thing as a clinical psychologist, you got to still do your postdoc hours. And then after you finish up your postdoc hours, then you can go back and take the exam to be licensed. So they don't make it easy for you. It's not just about going to school and doing all this stuff. They have other steps that you actually have to do, regarding that aspect of it. And so, I've been working at this, internship, pretty much, working with, kids and youth, anywhere from as young as 7 and as old as 18. And the majority of the kids that I see, the clients that I see, are youth of color, predominantly African American youth. And of course, they are coming to see a therapist for a reason, because something's going on in their lives, and so their caregivers or the parents, whatever, feel like that they need someone to help guide them in a direction that feels that to sort of kind of help them get through whatever is happening with them regarding that aspect of it. And so what happened, just recently, one of the ones that I see, we've been working on a lot, with them, and it was actually going very well, and there was some progress happening with this particular person. But then the whole, the shelter in place, the COVID took, happened, and so that shifted the way that we had to see them. So we no longer was able to see them in person. So we had to shift to, of course, the either the telephone or through video, which is different. That's a different challenge to be able to work with someone with that. And but then I noticed that a lot more came up for this particular person because of that, and they were really challenged and really taking this hard, and so a lot was going on with them. And so part of it is not only working with the client but also with their caregivers. And so and this particular person had a couple of caregivers, one that I used to work with on a more frequent basis, but then that person was not as available, so they asked me to talk to the other caregiver. Well, with the other caregiver, apparently, for them, from their perception and the way that they saw things, is they felt like that I was not doing a good job to take care of the client that I was seeing. So they, went on and pretty much attacked me. Pretty much told me I was a horrible therapist, that there's no way I should have been gotten a doctorate degree, that I do not care about the client at all, and that all I'm doing is just causing harm. And it just went on and on and on. And it was so hard to have someone attack you in that way, and me feeling like, oh my God, feeling like this whole victim thing of like, wow, is this really happening? And I'm really like being pushed in a way or being seen in a way that in my mind I felt like, no, I try to do the best that I can, that I try to do what I can to be able to help the clients that I see. But yet this individual was in a different, state and, different things that was going on regarding them. And then I, found myself having to take a step back and to look at the big picture and to see where they were coming from, to understand that things have shifted for them as well, because, the kids are at home a lot more than they, used to, and all the challenges that they actually have to go through and they have to, deal with. And so I had to like take a step back and realize that I cannot take it personally. I cannot allow myself to perceive that I am a victim and be able to see this individual as innocent. To be able to see all they want is what's best for, the person that they're taking care of. That's all they want. And, you know, f- for them, that's the way that they was able to express that. It was not expressed in a way that felt comfortable for me, because I, felt attacked, and I felt that, I done everything I possibly could to be able to assist this particular client, especially considering the situation that we are in, because it's a totally different way of how you interact and how you have to do things than previously. And so I was able to turn it over and be able to see it differently. Yet unfortunately, the person was still frustrated and still continued to leave me messages that were very hurtful and that was very, very nasty. And which started bringing playing more and more into my ego, more and more into me feeling, really, not too good about me, myself, and really, taking that victimness, inside of me. Um, and then I was, guided that, what, maybe it's just not meant for me to work with this particular caregiver. Maybe it's meant for me to work with the other, caregivers. So I was, thinking about that. And then, of course, reminds us he must be innocent because he knows not what he does, but what is done to him. Yet is his own attack upon himself apparent still, for it is he who bears the suffering. And so for me, it was very interesting of how powerful the spirit is. Because even though I was thinking it, then the other caregiver who I used to work with actually reached out to me and asked me to start back interacting with them instead. And then I was thinking, wow, that's a holy moment. I was thinking it and I was, feeling it. And yet apparently the other caregiver felt the same thing. They felt, okay, something is not clicking. It's just not, was not right regarding that aspect of it. And realized the whole thing is about us doing what we can to take care of this person that I was seeing. Because the person does need a lot of support. And and for that person to be able to realize that, it was such a huge release for me to be able to see that and to be able to realize, okay, spirit, you also knew that it was important that a shift needed to happen. This person still has to deal with whatever they need to do, but my role, my point was to always still come from a loving and healing place. And that was my goal, and that was my purpose, in this aspect of it. So I was able to allow myself to shift, briefly at that, and stop beating myself up for it, and just trust that things would work out the way it did. And it did. I'm working back with the other caregiver, and we get along very well, and we're doing what we can to take care of this person. And so just another way of how powerful the spirit is when we bring the spirit in and not allow our ego to come out. But the same thing that was happening at, along with that, is then I had to deal with stuff that was happening at my other job. As you guys know, I work for the, health department, and a lot of stuff was happening there also that brought up some stuff with me regarding that. And the course tells us this: now you are being shown you can escape. All that is needed is your look upon the problem as it is, and not the way that you have set it up. All that is needed is you to look upon the problem as it is, and not the way that you have set it up. So doing the work with the health department, as most of you know, I do a lot of work regarding health disparities among African Americans. That's what I do. And we fund a couple of agencies to do that work. And so I oversee that. Well, when COVID came about, as part of a city worker, we become disasters worker, which means that our focus and our energy has to go towards that work. And so my work had to go towards COVID. We're still, included doing work in the African American community. The thing though, what was happening that that it came up, and that this really, really um, set me into a tailspin, was that these agencies that was doing the work, we made a decision to integrate COVID into their contract, because the contract is coming up to get renewed, because we felt that COVID is impacting the African American community, and since their job is to be able to do, work in the African American community, especially regarding disparity, that was important for them to be able to do it. Well, at some point, there was some miscommunication that was taking place and that was happening. And so I acknowledge my part, that I may have not communicated as well as I should have. I may have not been clear, because my energy had been focused on so many different things. And so we had a meeting with this one of these particular agencies who was having trouble, regarding it. And in that meeting, one of the individuals, in my mind, I felt, attacked me, and pretty much told me that although I may be African American, I really don't understand what's going on in the African American community, that I'm not connected to the community, that all I'm doing is just another public health person who's causing harm to the community, that I'm adding trauma to it. And so it was just so painful and so hurtful to hear that, to take that, in of how they perceived me and the work that I was doing. And I was starting to feel like a victim, and I was just like really getting into this negative, thinking of my self regarding that aspect of it. I have a friend that I speak to pretty much every night, and I was not even able to speak to them for a couple of days, because it just was so hurtful to think and imagine that I'm causing harm to a community that I know experienced a lot of trauma already. And me feeling like I've always felt like I do what I can to be able to do that. And so it was tough to be able to um, hear that, for the community. No one can waken from a dream. The world is dreaming for him. He becomes a part of someone else's dream. He cannot choose to waken from a dream he did not make. Helpless, he stands, a victim to a dream conceived and cherished by a separate mind. Careless indeed of him, this mind must be, as thoughtless of his peace and happiness as is the weather or the time of day. And so this whole incident that took place, it was just another reminder for me that it's not about them, about what was going on with them, that was happening, with them. It was more about what's going on with me. What was happening to me that I felt triggered? What was happening to me that I felt like a, victim, when all they were doing, just expressing where they were at, what they were feeling, how they, perceive things are. And I get it, because I know our system in public health is not great. And I recognize that. And I know I do my part to do whatever I can to help support. But I also recognize that I have to acknowledge what they're going through, and to be able to hold that. And to be able to hold that, that means I cannot buy into being a victim, that I need to be able to see all of them, everyone, as loving child of God and innocent. And that my role, my purpose in this role of the stuff that I do, is to be able to bring everyone as one mindedness, Because when I'm in victimness or guilt, I'm being separate. I am not being together. And this helped me to be able to see and shift that and see it differently. It's going to take some time to continue to work through this, but I know and I trust that with spirit guidance, that I will always come from truth because I'm coming from truth because the spirit is guiding me. I'm not listening to my ego. So whether it's with the caregivers at the internship, whether it's with the ADCs that I'm working with who has a different perspective of how things are, my purpose and my only purpose is to always come from healing and love no matter what. And that is my talk.
I just wanna give to you the perfect gift today. I just wanna give to you the gift of joy today. I just wanna give to you the gift